Do you want your business to grow faster? Are you open to new and out-of-the-box ways to drive revenues and increase value? How do you imagine the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders double, triple, or expand their businesses tenfold or more? The answer is Deals. This is a weekly podcast featuring conversations with business owners, executives, and leaders as we reveal behind-the-scenes details that give you, our listeners, the confidence to pursue your own deal-driven growth. On this show, we discuss a huge variety of deals, everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions, capital raising, joint ventures, strategic alliances, real estate, affiliate and sponsorship deals, franchising, and more. My name is Corey Kupfer, and I've been supporting deal-driven growth for businesses for over 35 years as a successful entrepreneur, professional negotiator, and attorney. My goal is to help you strategize, plan for, find, and complete deals that will help your company grow faster. Welcome to the DealQuest Podcast. Let's get started. 180 Water Franchising is a rapidly growing home services franchise specializing in water well pump installation, maintenance, and water system solutions. Founded in Montana, the brand provides entrepreneurs with proven business models, hands-on training, and ongoing support to build a successful service-based business in a high-demand industry. With a focus on reliability, community impact, and recurring service, 180 Water empowers owners to deliver clean, dependable water to homes, businesses, and agricultural operations nationwide. I am thrilled to have Jack Clark, who is the founder and owner of that phenomenal company, on the DealQuest podcast. Jack, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hey, Corey, thanks for having me.
Well, I certainly want to get into, your entrepreneurial experience and, the franchising model and how, this is a Deals podcast, so we're going to focus there. But before we get into all that, I want to take you back to when you were a little kid growing up, maybe 10, 12 years old. What did you want to be? Because I'm guessing a franchise owner of any type, probably wasn't it, but you tell me.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't. My path has not been something that I ever pictured for myself. It's, I really kind of pushed strongly my career into service and through my own business and then through the franchise model also. And so, I knew it was going to be something that, hopefully gave back to the community, as I think a lot of us dream about, of coming from a small town and being that local, hero in your own way of saving the day and doing good work. And so I always kind of had that background, and I think that there's a certain amount of accountability that comes with growing up in a small town. And I always had a session for water. I grew up on a farm that almost had too much water. And so I had a kind of a different relationship with it, of how to kind of get water to drain and move and get out of the field so we could cut the hay and put the cows in it. And so it was always kind of a battle with the water. It wasn't like a shortage thing. It was more of a, we almost had too much of it. We grew up at a river bottom. And so, it was always there, and there was always, creeks to play in and minnows to catch and fish to catch. And so I grew up around water my entire life, and I just kind of transitioned and blossomed from there.
I love it. Well, what at that age though, even though you have those elements that it sort of makes sense where you ended up, what was the dream though? A lot of folks, whether it's sports or whatever else it is, do you remember what did you think you wanted to be when you were a little kid?
Oh, I think I always wanted to be an egg producer and be involved in agriculture, and I am in a certain way now. We service a lot of those customers, and, I kind of started this water journey on this is going to be my side project, and I'm going to ranch. And, I haven't seen a cow in a few years. I will admit that it's gotten a little too busy for a lot of those things, but, it starts with that background. But when you grow up in a hay field, it's easy to convert that to, how many wells you drill a day to how many pumps you put in the ground compared to, how many acres you swathed or harrowed, or how many cows you moved and worked, and so those rhythmic of agriculture, that same pattern over and over every day, every year, really transitioned into a successful career for me.
Love it. And what was, so you mentioned a small town. Where did you grow up?
Shoto, Montana. Yeah, a little 1,800 people, I think, is the population, probably still, I would guess. But yeah, up on a windy front, so mountains of the Rockies here. So yeah.
Love it. One more question looking back. What was the first deal of any type that you did? Maybe there was something before, maybe it was an early franchise, or was there something before that?
Business-wise in my career, I pretty much went straight from a little bit of college. And then I bought a drill rig, I think my sophomore summer of college. And so I had to make the difficult decision of that fall. I had too many wells to drill and not enough time to do it before school started. So you can imagine what happened as a 20-year-old kid with a drill rig payment. I went drilling and I haven't turned back. And, that's been, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago now. And so, wow. And then from there, I've just kind of managed to pick up a lot of mentorship along the way, like I meet a lot of drillers that have taken me under their wing and helped me, be humble and learn from them and really move me up in my career. And so that's kind of what we're doing with 180 is allowing those people to, live on through our franchise model. So
Love it. What had you at that age buy your first drill rig? Like how did that come about?
yeah, when I was a young man growing up, our family ranch was sold when I was really little, and that kind of stuck with me. That kind of gives you an edge. I remember looking at the online, knowing that I was a kid, and I would probably give anything in the world to be able to purchase that place at 10 years old, and so I think that lights a little fire in your belly of I never want to be in that situation again, and and I think that's kind of what pushes you. And I think we've had a lot of good competition on the drilling side that's really allowed us to grow into a great company.
Yeah. But was there something about that particular, area? Like why a drill rig in the first place, as opposed to something else,
Yeah. Well, so drilling is kind of an interesting thing in that little town. Well, my neighbor growing up was a water well driller.
Okay.
And so, the weekends of working late, his rig's parked all weekend, and then he gets in it on Monday and goes and makes a good living. His stuff is always neat. His life is always controlled. And, across the fence, raising cattle is a much different atmosphere, I guess you would say. And so, you always pay attention to that stuff. I had to walk by his place to go to school. And so it's just one of those things you just kind of notice, and Ray was a good influence for me and a big part of this. And so it was something that I knew my parents would allow me to probably quit college for.
Yeah.
And so that also helped out a little bit, that I knew that, I'd been through it with my parents. My dad was very entrepreneurial. That's what happens when you grow up on a small farm is you got to make ends meet. So you end up with a lot of, side projects, I guess you would say, or side businesses. And so there was always something. So that kind of instilled the entrepreneurial spirit in me. And I think that was kind of the start to it is to watch that kind of happen. And then Ray was the other side of it. And then plugging all those pieces together to kind of bring this in. So
Love it. So how long, so talk about the evolution of the company, right? Because, I know with some folks, there's certainly some people out there that start out thinking, okay, I'm going to build a franchise model. But with a lot of folks, it's more they're in a particular business, right? They grow it to some extent. And then at some point they look, okay, how do I continue to scale this thing? And okay, I can just, have it all company owned or maybe franchise is the way to go. What was your journey on it? Like how did, from the startup, how long did you run it? When did you start thinking about franchising?
yeah, the model of franchising was, I probably didn't start thinking about that till I was 5 years deep in my career, and it takes a long time to become a good driller. And so, heavily focused on just, getting my skills dialed in and really being good at what I did. And then the phone started to ring of, hey, Jack, how do I get into the water well industry? Hey, how do I become a water well driller? How did you get in? And it's a kind of a niche that, everybody forgets about. And it's tough to get into, even as a owner now, I don't know if I have a driller until, I invest 1 year of apprenticeship. And then after a year of licensing, then they can start to, it's a big, long period to really kind of make a good driller. And so, it takes a bit to kind of get that underneath you. So what I mean by that is it's a skilled labor position. So yeah, of course I started out thinking, yeah, I'm going to build a giant corporation and a huge company, and we're going to have, 50 to 100 employees and run 20 drill rigs. And yeah, you go down that journey, and I was well on my way. I think I ran 4 drill rigs one summer and had 35 employees. And it was probably the least happiest I ever was in my life. Nobody was happy. I sent my best guys the worst projects and my worst guys the best projects, and nobody won. And so I had 2 locations, and we were spread really thin. I put 100,000 miles in my pickup that summer, and yeah, there was nights I slept in my pickup, and just went back to work. I mean, it just never ended, and so I think those kind of wake up calls in life help you kind of go, there's got to be a better way, and that's really kind of when I went to the franchise model, because we're so overwhelmed with work, and these people have to have service. This isn't like something that is a luxury product. I mean, this is a necessity. If these guys don't have water, their cattle die, their houses don't run. I mean, they have to haul water to drink. I mean, it's a serious deal. And so we had to service all these clients, and I didn't want to be the guy that sat around my office and told everybody no, and not be able to service them. And also the water well industry is really used to that mom and pop company. So if you call a well guy, it's a good chance that you're talking to the owner, and that, he has maybe 5 to 10 employees. I mean, they're cranking some serious sales, but it's a smaller based company, and that service is really what everybody's used to. And so the franchise model just kind of fit that perfectly, in terms of that's what the industry is used to. It's what works good. The skilled labor side of it is a hurdle that's, now used to our advantage, because it makes it very profitable. The barriers to entry, and that, the cost of equipment is expensive, but once again, that's what makes it profitable.
Yeah.
And so all those things kind of add up to make a great little niche of a blue collar job, but really pretty easy blue collar job. So
Love it. So had you, you talked about your father being an entrepreneur, of course, I mean, growing up, a farm, like all the different side businesses and hustles, and find a way to make, and then you talked about the neighbor, Ray, I think his name was, right, with the, did you have any models of, like, how did you come to know about franchising, or consider it, or even know how to do it? Did you have any models for that?
yeah, I mean, I just listened to books is really what I did. When you put 100,000 miles on a pickup in the summer, you listen to a lot of books. And I'm a phone call guy. Like, I'll just pick up the phone and cold call somebody. And so that's kind of how I started in, the drilling side. I mean, you kind of hit plateaus in your career. There was a drilling company that the driller ended up with cancer. And so I called them just out of the blue, and asked if there was anything I could do to help them out. And I had actually ended up subcontracting for them for a year. And that really brought me up in the world, I mean, great mentorship, and just to be able to kind of see that business model that they were running 20 years into their career when I was 5 into mine.
Yeah.
And the value of that too, right? And so it comes to, how do you add that value for other people? And the water well industry is tough, because if we don't get there, people can't wait for water. So they're calling the neighbor down the street that fixed a well 20 years ago, and he doesn't know what he's doing, but he's going to try, and then it gets all goofed up. And so there's some professionalism too that we wanted to build into this thing, to make sure that we're really building responsible, water well guys. And so it's been a big ball of wax, but I think it's headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
So
that company where you said the owner unfortunately had cancer, that you were subcontracting for, were they a franchise model, or they were just a bigger, they were just a bigger company?
Yeah.
There were some lessons from that.
They're a bigger company. Yeah. No one's ever franchised the water well industry. Yeah.
Got it.
It's we're actually the first ones. I think a lot of guys have talked about it, but it's one of those things that's, until you really start to unfold that onion, you don't really realize how many layers there are to it. I mean, you see some things, in your day-to-day business that, hey, this pressure switch failed. Why? And until you really have an outlet to really build that out into a model, you don't really think about it, but they still build up to be hurdles of problems in your head that you do need to solve to be able to get to it. And I think, fortunately enough, I was young enough and dumb enough where I didn't necessarily see all of those hurdles.
Right.
But
I had this conversation with somebody recently where, sometimes somebody will say, wow, I wish I knew all this stuff when I started. And my only half joke, because I really think it's true, is, no, if you knew everything that you were going to go through when you started, you never would have started. It's the worst idea in the world to say you wanted to know everything up front. Because if, like, looking at all those hurdles going forward before you start, like, you would never, like, it's better that you don't know, you steal them as they come.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, and I'm definitely a prime example of that. If I would have had any idea from the beginning, there's no way that anybody would ever sign up for this journey. I mean, it's been a long one.
Yeah.
But it's been really good. I'm glad we're getting through it. But I mean, there's definitely hard days.
Sure. So talk to me about, when you, with that larger company, you said, you got to see how they operated. What were some of the lessons that you saw? Like, what are some of the things that they were doing well at 20 years of brains in that you picked up at, 5 years into your journey?
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing, like when you get a peek into a larger company that's doing more scale than what you're looking at, you really start to see the systems and the operations of it. I mean, and coming from the background of this is a side project to make ends meet on the ranch, you don't necessarily, you don't get into that rhythm. And I think like that was really where I started to understand that, man, you can plan these things out and have them beat like a drum every day. And that's where you start to get hooked on the system. So then from there, you grow your system, your scalability goes way up. And so I think just to be able to peek into that and say, wow, they take weekends off. That's crazy. I can't believe that. And so I think it's just a look at being able to say, wow, you can smooth this thing out. You can get the right people in the right places and make this thing run.
Got it.
So,
So, you get that. And obviously, one of the key things to having a successful franchise as a franchisor is having systems, right? That's a big part of what you're, it's not the only thing, but it's a big part of what you're selling, right? As opposed to somebody being doing it on their own. So what was it though? Because we haven't gotten to the point where like, how does franchising, like what's the trigger for you to say, I'm going to be the first one in this industry to franchise and I'm going to figure out how to do that. Like, what was that trigger?
I walked in the office one day and I had a relatively new office lady that was answering the phone for me. And she was diagnosing pumps over the phone. And I had really been looking at franchising for drilling. And I just couldn't get the right equation for drilling. Like there was too many variables.
Yeah.
And then I walked through the door and listened to her diagnose a pump over the phone. And I was like, well, there's the math. You know what I mean? There's the solution. I mean, if she can never see a well system and be able to diagnose it over the phone and she's correct, there's a pattern to this. And so then we started to unfold those layers of the onion and go, yeah, this is totally scalable. What we do every day. And we can replicate that across the country. And then, you start diving in on the study side of things too. I mean, we're looking at half the water well industry retiring in the next 5 years, and so our curve on our labor market is much steeper than what everybody's seeing in other trades. And I think that's because the equipment is expensive.
Sure.
And so they get in later and then they stay in longer. And now we're to this pivotal point where they're going to just fall off. And then to see that as a young entrepreneur that's in that industry, yeah, it's exciting until you realize that you're going to be right back to sleeping in your pickup and having 35 employees and trying to run 10 drill rigs. And then you're like, I don't want to do that again.
Right.
Definitely not. We already been over that bridge. And so a lot of it came from the necessity of the market too, and trying to catch that gap to make sure that these people have water.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's interesting to me because in the little, we had a quick pre-call and then we're talking now. And, what's clear to me is that you're a guy who dropped out of college to pursue business, but you are clearly a lifelong learner, right? There's no question, you're talking about listening to books, you're talking about checking out the studies, you're talking about stats on, whatever, right? And so you realize that growing this thing as, one entity and doing having 10 rig, whatever, like is not what you want to do. That's clear. So now how do you, whether it's your own learning, whether it's the team you surround you with or expertise you got, like, how do you figure out how to franchise?
Oh man, I don't even know if you ever figure out how to franchise. I mean, it's a moving target. I mean, we meet every week and it evolves every week in terms of what we can do for our guys, and I think the biggest point of that is just, like you said, constantly learning and staying humble. I mean, our newest franchisee teaches us more about the well industry than a guy with 30 years experience because he's looking at it through a different lens.
Right.
And so as you kind of grow into these franchise models, I mean, I seen a thing the other day that it was somebody that was a fresh franchisor and was talking about a company that wanted to add a different service to their franchise model. And he was just pulling his hair out. And it was like, yeah, but that guy probably knows better than I do. And I think just staying humble in that point that everybody has something to offer and everything works as a team here at 180 Water is so important. I mean, I might have a huge blind spot of where this thing's even going to go in the next 10 years, but if I can keep my head on a swivel, stay humble and listen, then I think we have a good opportunity to find those opportunities for all of us. So
love it. How did you find your first franchisee?
Let's see. I think it was through Branch World Ads, actually. It's just a little website that, I always popped on a couple times a year,
Yeah.
and they had business for sale. And in the beginning, you're doing everything. I mean, you're so excited, but you're also like, you got nothing to lose at that point, So, I mean, you're doing Craigslist ads, you're doing Ranch World ads, you're running Facebook ads. I mean, you're doing everything to let people know that you're out there, and so I think it came off Ranch World ads. Clayton, he's our top guy right now out of Billings. And I think he just cranked over 100 reviews on Google in this year. And I mean, just absolutely crushing it. Called me the other day looking for a second truck and add an employee. It's really starting to get fun for him, and then that's the point of this is we try to get guys where I was year 5, when I walked through the door, and it became fun, and you could relax a little bit, and you knew when you laid down in bed at night that your systems were all done, your I's were dotted, your T's were crossed, everything was good, and that's such a big part of business. I mean, I don't know how many nights I had to tell myself, hey, you did everything you could. Hey, Jack, that's all you can do, Yeah. And so it's important to have those things tied into this. And, and then the other side of this is obviously we're a big buying pool. And so it allows us to work together with our buying power to get better prices, and better products and better availability for our clients. So
Love it. And how many franchisees do you have at this point?
we have 10. We're in 5 different states right now. Yeah. So, and then, so I mean, it's been cruising right along. And I think that's kind of a nice pace for us. We were buying trucks out of Texas, and then now we can no longer get service trucks. And so we started manufacturing our own. So we had a little gap there where we weren't quite ready. We were testing, we were prototyping. And so now we're back on the, steady flow of trucks. So we should be back to probably opening one every other month now. Like 6 to 10 a year, I think, pretty consistently now.
Let's take a break from the show for a minute so I can tell you about an incredible resource my team and I have put together for you. Secrets of Deal-Driven Growth, Creative Ways to Grow Your Business Even in Challenging Times, is a powerful ebook that helps you take DealQuest Podcast episodes and apply them to your own life and business. This is the ideal tool for anyone looking for creative ways to grow as deal makers, and you can get yours now. It's as easy as heading to corykupfer.com/workbook and downloading your copy. While you're there, you can also consider joining our dynamic deal-driven community of founders, experts, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. Now back to the show. So it's interesting because we've had other folks on, we've had some of the franchise, brokers on and things like that. And, like the franchise model is available across a bunch of different industries. And you have, a lot of people know the food, right, related franchises a lot more. And, we've had folks on that only deal with non-food franchises because they're very different, and then you've got in the range of franchises, you got your McDonald's or whatever it is, where it could be hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of investment, needed. Then you have franchises that start where it's like very, 15 grand and you don't have a lot. How does it work in your model, right? Because there is capital, right, investment that's necessary. It's not McDonald's, but it's also not, your service franchise that, takes no investment, right? So how does the model work in terms of, what you take care of, what the franchisees need to take care of, that kind of stuff? What's the investment involved, all that kind of stuff?
So typically our most common investment is about $250,000. So that gives you a fully stocked $250,000 service truck. We tool everything. It's a 2-week training program out here in Montana. And you can't learn everything about well work in 2 weeks, but what it teaches you is the language. And so it allows us to communicate. And so then same thing with the office lady diagnosing over the phone. We can help you diagnose over the phone. You have the skills to be able to execute those things and then to be able to communicate the issues with us. And so the first, month is a lot of phone calls back to us. And we have wonderful guys here that help coach you through that. And then after that, I mean, your phone just kind of rings and it's busy. Usually, we set up all their Google, their Facebook and everything when they first get to class. And by the time they leave class, they're usually hurrying home to 3 or 4 service calls. I mean, it's that turnkey. And so we have great suppliers that, typically will set up accounts that allow them 90 days on those. And so the operating is nothing too crazy. And so, the startup costs about $250,000. So.
And are these mainly folks who have been in the industry, have some experience in the industry already?
No, usually they're brand new to it, and Yeah. I mean, everything from guys that graduated with engineering degrees to guys that worked in mines to oil field to, I mean, there's certain aspects of it that, yeah, I mean, uh, Joe Blow off the street might not feel comfortable driving down the road in that 550, and so there's a certain caliber of guy that, it really fits with.
Yeah.
But in terms of rhymes and reasons of what they did or life experience, we haven't really found any patterns with that. Definitely a guy that would love to find one of those to be like, this is our ideal candidate. Yeah. And when you go through all this franchise stuff, they always talk about that. Now you just kind of got to chuckle because you just never know. I mean, I thought one of my guys is going to the top one, and he's definitely not, and I thought one of them would be pretty average, and he's a top guy, and you just don't know, and so I think it's, comes back to being humble of admitting that we really have no idea. All we could do is help and coach and get people moving in the right direction. And this is definitely one of those businesses that the more you put into it, the more it takes. I mean, the water well industry has literally absorbed everything I've ever thrown at it, all the way up to 35 employees and the 4 drill rigs. When I went from buying 2 drill rigs to 4, that was a big jump. I was concerned, and it just took it like I could have bought 10 drill rigs and it wouldn't have mattered. They all would have been busy. And same thing with the franchise model. Man, I really hope these guys are busy. And they're asking us to quit advertising because they're so busy.
Wow.
They can't take on more clients. I mean, they're absolutely swamped. Every single one of them is doing exactly what they want to be doing. And I haven't had a single one ask me for a job in, I don't know, a year probably. I'm like, hey, can you do some marketing or something? I mean, they're just all cranking. And it's just so cool to see. We meet every Thursday with all of them and just, talk about what we've learned. And then, we record that in AI, put it into a book, continue that education through all of us. And it's really cool to watch it because, I mean, when you first start, it was a lot of me sharing my knowledge. And now it's a lot of the other franchise guys that have been running for 2 years that are sharing the knowledge with the new guy. And to watch that all kind of come in, I'm learning things in those meetings.
Right.
So the collection of data and being able to test things in the market is so rapid with the 180 stuff. It really allows us to be excellent at our skill.
It's amazing because like there are so many franchises out there where, yeah, I mean the franchisor provides the system and the buying scale and maybe provides some advertising support, but a big part of it is that the local franchisees have to hustle business, right? And then so to have that kind of flow that that comes in, I mean to have that kind of market and need, is phenomenal. I guess in part it's because there are, other franchises competing and maybe they're bigger companies that do have systems and quality, but, we have that. And then obviously you guys must do great work because obviously, so it's fascinating a franchise opportunity where people, obviously I'm sure they work hard, but where they don't have to worry about, am I going to get enough business? I mean, that's amazing.
Right. I mean, we all worry about it in the beginning, but yeah, that goes away usually in the first 30 days.
Wow.
So, or sometimes by the time they're out of training, they're like, oh man, I don't know if we're going to get all this done. Yeah, that happens quick, and so it's really cool to kind of watch them come back in and add an employee at another truck and start to build up the business. I mean, I try to size all our franchise locations to be able to get to that point where it was really fun with 5 or 6 employees, 2-3 trucks running, everybody's competing. It's electric, And so I never try to choke anybody on the franchise location. I try to get it big enough so they can scale that up. And so I think that's really neat. And I think that's a cool part of what we're doing here at 180 is to try to size these territories big enough to be, I mean, that's a good sized company, so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love it. It's great. So it's pretty typical. So there's an upfront amount, there's a percentage of revenue or something that you guys take. There's advertising fees or whatever, like the very classic.
Yeah. So we have a 6% gross sales royalty that comes back here. And then we have a 2% brand fund. So we have a $45,000 franchise fee. And we waive that for the first one in every state just to kind of share in that risk. And so we still have a few of those left. We're only in 5 states. So, and then after that, we'll bring it back to the $45,000 franchise fee. But, I mean, guys are taking chances on us. So, it's just like a dry hole rate when you're drilling a well. It invests us in it too, where, you're the first guy taking a chance. I'll take a chance on you too. So hopefully I recoup my $45,000 on my 6% royalty. And so far it's worked out really well. And that's really allowed us to bring in some amazing guys that, take that jump with us to open up in Wisconsin or Oklahoma and farther from us, where we're figuring out how to support them and make sure that we get them what they need. And when you got the right guys on the bus, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So as obviously you're at the, point where, I mean, it sounds like you're poised for, significant additional growth. What does it take in terms of like building the internal team to continue to support, bigger and bigger, larger number of franchisees?
Well, that's kind of something about the franchise model that I didn't really expect is your staff is almost running in front of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you almost staffed up to the point where you can take on that growth because you need all those systems and you need all those people in those places. But with 10 guys, we can probably scale that up to 30.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to kind of, have that coming from that perspective of the water well industry where, oh man, we have 30 jobs on the books for next week. We need to see if we can call out this guy to give us a hand. And so it's much more structured in terms of, being able to picture forward. I mean, our trainings are usually scheduled out, 8 weeks. And they're always been full, but yeah, I mean, it's a process there with, having almost too much staff in terms of it to be able to take on that growth. And so very opposite from operating these, service-based businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I had a conversation with a client today in a totally different industry, but it's this conversation of if you want to grow, whether it's in a franchise model or in, a company-owned model, whatever it is, that there's always these points where you're going to cap out unless you invest ahead of the next level of growth, right? So, you have to invest, whether it's people, whether it's systems, whether it's technology, whether it's, whatever it is. And then inevitably, at least in the short term, there's a drop in profit, right? Because you're reinvesting money. And then, hopefully you hit that next plateau. And, which obviously, there's some risk that, but it's impossible actually to go from here to this next level without making that investment that will temporarily, right, dip the profits. That's part of the entrepreneurial journey.
Oh, for sure. Well, and what you don't realize is there's a lot of people that jump off that boat as soon as that profit dips.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting to kind of watch that. I'd never really experienced that in my life. I mean, I was just a young guy drilling water wells. I mean, it's a very profitable business. And so to watch myself jump into this long-term stuff and then try to explain it to my old banker, that was like, who's going to pay you 6%? I was like, oh, I think it's a very doable thing here, Lyle, And so, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's funny to watch people scramble when those profits dip. And it's something that you just don't expect, and it's something that I definitely didn't expect. It was something that was definitely a miscalculation on mine of like, wow, I need a whole new team that understands our next level of business, and so, it's interesting to be back on the market looking for a banker after 10 years and somebody that understands franchising.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's just weird to watch your relationships change and evolve too. And I think that's also part of, that dip that you're talking about is you also, the same banker that got you to this point isn't the same guy that's going to get you to the next point. And I've been very fortunate and I had a lot of respect in this industry to be actually close those chapters. You know what I mean? Like literally sat down with my original banker that took a chance on me at 20 years old that said, we had a good run, and he knows it and I know it and we can shake hands and we respect each other and we know that it's done. And to kind of close that chapter is really bittersweet, and it's been that way, through employees and staffing and all of those things too. But yeah, I mean, those are the things you don't really know until you sign up for the hard road.
Yeah.
So.
And the ability, like it's become a cliche, but it's true. Like what got you here will not get you there. It's just a fact. And whether that's people or systems or outside relationships or access to capital, whatever it is. And, I think one of the issues that some entrepreneurs have is that, those can be tough decisions, right? Like, Mary, who was at your side helping out, the company's evolved, past her, or you have a great relationship with the banker. And listen, hopefully everybody can understand where it's at and you treat people right, even if there's an evolution out, everybody's good. But, it's tough. It brings up a lot of stuff for entrepreneurs. I know, like that loyalty versus what the business needs, kind of thing is sometimes a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's hard from the outside looking in of like, when is enough, and when you decide that you're going to go for that next plateau, it's I think that's also a jumping off point too, and I think a lot of people think you're nuts until you get over that next plateau.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So it's been an interesting ride around here for the last couple of years, and it's been really good. I've worked my tail off. I'm not gonna lie. This has been way more difficult than what I thought it was, but I think at the end of the day, it's made me a better entrepreneur. It's made me better boss, a better business owner. It's made my original business, Western Water Wells, incredible. To build those systems into this business where, yeah, we have 15 guys that work at Western, and we might not need this great operating system, but it's made us so efficient and it's so good at what we're doing. It's just incredible to watch it all unfold, and really come into fruition. So
Love that. Yeah. And I'll tell you, it's why a lot of entrepreneurs do plateau, or they don't make those tough decisions. But it's absolutely, and anybody I know who has scaled has gone through that reinvestment, needing to upgrade or change team members, needing to find new outside sources. Like I haven't seen a road that avoids that, right? For companies that'll look at a scale. So it's part of the journey. And frankly, it's one of the things I love. You mentioned the idea that, people thinking you're crazy or whatever. I tell a story a lot of times, like when I first, because everybody looks at it through their own eyes, right? And it's why, and I've mentioned this before, I've been a member of Entrepreneurs Organization for, 15 plus years, because like being around other entrepreneurs, like we're a rare breed, right? It's like people don't get us, and people who work for other people, no judgment. Like one's not better than the other. It's just that if you've never taken that kind of risk, whatever, you think it's crazy. And I remember when I left big law back when I was 30 years old and hung out a shingle with no clients, everybody told me I was crazy, and I was giving up a 6-figure salary in the 90s, to that's $17,000 my first year, and everybody, tell me, why are you doing this? It's crazy. It's a recession. Like, what are you? And then I remember a couple years later, it was only a few years later when we built out an office down on Wall Street in New York, right? And, I had a view of Statue of Liberty, and, there were glass front conference room with the books on the wall, and we had a party. We brought everybody in. All of those same people, the same exact people that tell me I was crazy and shouldn't do it, were the ones who were saying, "Oh, I always knew you'd be successful." They didn't remember, right? And they're not people. It's just that from there, most people give you advice from the view of what they would do, right? And they would never take that risk and leave, a big 6-figure salary. So it's crazy to them. But when they came in and they saw the manifestation of the success, right? And they saw the big office, whatever, of course they knew that I was going to be successful. And they didn't remember that they were warning me against it in the early days. And, and it's why it's, you want to be open to input and things like that. But, especially for people who haven't been through it, you got to be careful about people, not intentionally, but, stealing your dreams. Like, you got to believe it yourself, right? You're not necessarily going to get a lot of support when it's not, when it's at the risky for.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely didn't picture myself, cutting that deep into the people that jumped off the ship. But at the end of the day, it still wouldn't change a thing. So
yeah, love it. All right. So talk to us a little bit, in terms of where you're looking to continue expansion, what states, whatever, and then also, like, you gave us an idea of, to some extent, the type of people who are ideal franchisees, but, tell us a little bit more about the expansion plans and who would be ideal and what you're looking to, grow into.
Yeah. So I think kind of immediate expansions, as we're just starting to expand in the drilling. And so we're really just trying to build out our current franchisees really hardy. And make sure that they're extremely profitable, and very stable. The worst thing we can do is have somebody close a location or fail, or get to the point where they're not profitable.
Yes,
which is very weird in the water well industry, but it happens. So try to make sure that these guys are really solid. And so we're immediately we got our first brand new drill rig coming in here in June, and we're putting together water well drilling apprenticeship program to operate that. And so that's kind of the immediate expansion on that. And so we're pushing into that to be able to see if we can write a book with these new dual rotary drill rigs. And I think that we can. It's a simple drill rig out of Canada through Darris Manufacturing is who we're partnered up with on that deal. And so I think that it'll make it scalable on the drilling side. And I got to do a rotary drilling not that long ago, 3-4 years ago. And it's made us so consistent in the water well industry in terms of we can show up, we can drill 200 to 300 feet a day. It's perfect. We don't have to worry about getting casing to bottom. And it just makes that extra level. It was that aha moment of we've been missing this. And so we're going to try to take that a little bit further into this water well industry. And so we have a lot of people on the list to be able to get into that of our current franchise locations. Actually, every state will have one in it, and all 5 of our current states are planning to open a drilling location. And so that's kind of our upfront expansion right now. And then we're expanding into our Pump X manufacturing, which is our pump hoist, our pump service trucks. So all of that stuff will be coming in-house. And then just continue our partnerships through our suppliers and our national accounts to just make sure that our current guys are taken care of. So if somebody wants to be a franchisee and they call one of my franchise guys, they're going to hear nothing but good things about 180, and just continue to really focus on them. And I think the expansion will come, and the word of mouth is really important. And so primarily focusing on our main guys right now. And I'm sure we're going to end up in all 40, 50 states here. And I don't think it'll take very long, but we're just kind of letting it build a natural momentum. I'm a big push guy. I'm famous for scheduling too many jobs in a day and working till 10 o'clock at night to get them all done. And so the franchise model's kind of allowed me to put that brakes on, because it doesn't work. If I push, it's not natural. And so, I mean, I've had guys that, I talked to a year ago, and then have came back and said, all right, I'm ready. I got my house paid off. I got my savings done. I'm ready. And those are the best ones, and it's just started to grow and grow and grow on that. I mean, we've had 1,400 people apply for this franchise, and and so we're pretty picky about where we want to operate and how we want to operate. And I think a lot of those guys will be future franchise guys, and that pool is just continuing to grow, where it's starting to spit out more consistent guys for us. And I think the future's bright.
I love it. And in terms of who are the main folks you serve, like that the franchise you service, like who the ultimate customers are, give us an idea of who that is.
A lot of just residential water wells. I mean, even towns and cities. I mean, everybody's got water, and all these. I mean, everything is based on wells and pumps and big pumps and little pumps. And I mean, it's a weird market. I'd say I'm probably, like out here in Montana, I'm probably 30% agricultural, and probably, I'd say 60% of it is all residential.
Yep.
And then 10% commercial is probably how I operate. And so it's a nice wide variety. So I run 2 crews that primarily do new installs, new builds to ag wells, to all new stuff, and then 1 crew that does all services, what I operate. So
right. I don't know if you have any perspective on this, but it's interesting because I've seen in a lot of the trades, a lot of the construction, roofing, HVAC, like a bunch of those kind of places, it used to be very individual, distributed, small mom and pop kind of things, right? And then 2 trends have come into a lot of those places. One is either firms that are buying up, right? A lot of these folks, and trying to roll them into one company with systems, and another is franchise model in some of these places, right? And, the view is always to say, hey, not that these were bad people in any way, whatever, but, they were mom and pops. And in terms of having reliability in systems and, consistent quality and ability to be responsive, right? Because, they were very often, these mom and pop shops are good people, but they're capacity constrained, and maybe they don't keep up on the latest technology, or, there's like a million issues when you try to run a business as a mom and pop. And, so there's been a lot of more sophisticated players have come in, whether it's in the franchise model or the acquisition model. Are you seeing that in some of the, are there sort of related things in the water industry or other areas where, you're seeing some of that, or, where you think there's opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a little bit of the PE stuff come in now. I mean, it's starting to happen a little bit. And I know a few of them that have got bought out, but I don't know. I mean, it seems like they're kind of getting their butts kicked. I mean, that's when you see a driller that, has been a company for 30 years that's walking across the street. And then, if you lose one driller, that's a minimum of $2 million in sales. And so, that can really screw up an EBITDA number really quickly with just one guy walking out the door. And so it's a tricky business to manage drillers and this level of skilled labor. And so that's where the franchise model for us is really, I think, a secret sauce in terms of being able to, these guys are invested. This is their trucks. This is their rigs, but still, like you said, be able to innovate across it because, we're on the backside making sure that they have the latest technology, the latest tools, all the latest products. But really, they can focus on being a really great mom and pop.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think that's a great way to describe, like anything else, everybody's got an opinion on everything, right? So, there are people who hate the franchise model, there are people who love the franchise model, right? And the haters would say, oh, you're not really your own entrepreneur and you can't make decisions and you're subject to rules and restrictions and approvals and whatever. And listen, like everything else, there are good franchise systems and bad franchise systems, right? And whatever. But I think you described what makes like a great franchise a phenomenal opportunity, which is that you don't have to figure out how to build all the stuff yourself. There is expertise, there is models, there is systems, there is support. There's scale enough to innovate and then push it down. There's marketing muscle. There's all of this stuff. And you get to do, what you focus on and what you're great at and have influence over and direct relationship with your customers. So, I don't think it's like anything else. There's the good and the bad in every industry, but if it's done right, that's I think that's the opportunity of it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I probably wouldn't have been a guy that would have bought a franchise either. So I think that's kind of a unique deal for me. I mean, I'm not a systems guy or a follow the rules kind of guy. Or follow the steps, I should say. Rules are rules, but you know what I mean? If I read directions, I'll go from step 1 to step 3 to step 5,
right.
Skip them. And so I probably would be a terrible franchisee.
Right.
And so it's kind of interesting to watch myself blossom into a franchisor because I wouldn't want to deal with all that stuff. I wouldn't want to deal with the process of getting something approved or any of that stuff. And I think that's probably part of the reason that, 180 has been so successful because I don't want stupid rules. And we call it a stupid rule policy. If we have to make a stupid rule, then we just need to change the system. And, and there's a lot of truth to that. So we make sure that we don't make stupid rules. So
love it.
Simple as that.
So if people want to find out more about everything you have going on, where should they go?
Oh, probably 180waterfranchising.com is probably the best place. I mean, we're all over that. pumpexvoice.com. That's our manufacturing side. And so I think we're pretty easy attainable. I mean, you could probably get on a phone call with me within a week. Really easy. So, so I mean, shoot us an email. You can fill out the form there, the website, and we'll follow right up with you. And if you guys want to get in the water world, I think this is a great avenue. So
awesome. Jack, my final question of the podcast is always about my highest value in life, which is freedom. And for me, that means everything from freedom around the world for people from oppression to why I've been an entrepreneur for decades and haven't had a boss. What does freedom mean to you and how does it impact your life and business?
I think it's allowing yourself to work with the people you want to work with, and I think that's really where I'm at. So I made a promise to myself a long time ago when I had all those rigs running and putting so many miles and running so hard that I'd never work with somebody I didn't like again. And I've held true to that. And that's been very freeing for me. So.
Love that. Yeah. I mean, listen, we all spend a lot of time working, even when we've been able to, even if we're not working around the clock anymore. And if we don't, I mean, I've always subscribed to that. If I love my team, I love the people I work with. And if I didn't, I wouldn't want to be doing it. Love that answer.
Sure.
Jack Clark, thanks for being such a great guest on the DealQuest Podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Corey. This is great.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of DealQuest, where we help you understand how deal-driven growth can be your ticket to freedom. If you are interested in finding out more about my law firm, the services we provide to entrepreneurial and growing companies across industries all over the country, and my partner Brian Megan and I, and my amazing team, just head over to kupferlaw.com. That's kupferlaw.com. And if you want to follow more of my content, head over to my LinkedIn page where I post regularly. I'm Corey Kupfer. Until next week, wishing you the freedom and financial prosperity that I know your DealQuest will bring.